Hey team, Souter here. Welcome to week one. So I've read your chapters and I have a couple of things to say. So in the first chapter, y'all are going to feel so silly. What? She thinks I can't read. So we're going to hear me out, learn about the reading process. We're going to talk about your notes and we're going to talk about organization, but we're mostly going to talk about memories and stuff. First thing I want to talk to you was this mess. Now, I need you to know that this is from 2017. This is almost a decade out of date at this point, and I also need you to know that the cost of college has increased exponentially. Why is she telling us this? Listen, thing number one, don't buy a college degree if it's not going to serve you. Thing number two, you do need some form of secondary education to get to these numbers up here, but it may not be a bachelor's or a master's degree. Look at your fellow people at BCC. Look at your fellow students. They're here for trades. Somebody could go for HVAC and come out making more money than I do with 12 years and a master's degree. Okay? So I'm not saying you don't need education. I am saying be mindful about what it is you want to do. I also wanted to let you know that just because your book says something, especially if it's out of date, you are allowed to question it. Please do your own research. Please go out and look for stuff. Just because it's in a textbook. So, like, this one was right. They're not wrong, but also they're out of date. Does that make sense? I'm going to try the things I know about. I will catch, I will tell you. But I just wanted to make sure that you knew to get this kind of numbers, you don't necessarily need a master's degree. You might need a trade school degree. But the number one most important thing when y'all are picking a career is think about, what do you want your life to look like? Okay. So this is the advice I gave my students in high school. I said, all right, do you want to work days? Do you want to work nights? Do you want to work like really long stretches of time for like 4 days and then be like off like nurses do? Or do you want to work a little bit every day and get to be home every night? Like, what do you want your life to look like? What skills do you have that you feel really confident about? What do you think you can do that you're going to be really good at? What sort of like job combines those two things, right? So, like the lifestyle you want to have and the skill set you have. Once you look at those things together, that'll tell you what kind of jobs you should have. You should go talk to the Career Center if you want to know more. All right, let's see. So, your textbook talks a big game about preparing to read, but I found that section to be lacking because it doesn't talk about real world stuff. Now, definitely listen to it. It's right about all this mess, but like some of us need lo-fi beats to read and get in the zone to focus. Some of us need headphones in, like tune out the world to be able to read. Um, some of us need an emotional support water bottle or a snack in order to do work and be productive. But like the one thing that I'm super, and you can probably tell, super, super duper serious about is you cannot have distractions. If you think you're going to be able to read your textbook and be at like a ball game and also pay attention to the ball game, it's not going to work. You are not going to pay attention to one of those things. You are either not going to pay attention to the ball game, or more likely, you're not going to pay attention to your reading. So just be aware. I don't care who told you you could multitask. We can task switch. We cannot do two things at one time. So that's my soapbox on that one. Um, so predicting what you will learn, I don't know anybody that sits there and looks at a chapter title and then has an existential discussion with themselves about what they think that the chapter is going to be. I don't know a soul that does that, but it is good to kind of read the title, say, what am I learning about, like in a general sense? What do I know about it already? And then come into it having kind of thought that through. Not like in depth, because you should expect the chapter on like preparing to read to explain to you what it means about preparing to read. And if it doesn't, it's a terrible chapter, right? But you need to be an active participant in your reading, just like you need to be an active participant in life, right? Like don't like float through life just letting stuff happen. That's not the way to be. And last but not least, four, which kind of actually I skipped one, three, because I kind of addressed that just now. You need to read actively if you want to learn anything, and I mean that for serious. If you are not stopping every so often and going, what did I just read? And if you can't remember, you didn't get it. You got to go back and do it again. But I don't want to do it again. I already read it. Okay. But if it didn't stick, what good is it to you? Right. So, like, we're not out here trying to like do stuff to check a box and say we did it and move on. If you want to learn something, you got to keep it, if that makes sense. Um, Now, you may not care about like this course. You should, because this course is foundational to everything else. So, like, you need to know how to read, you need to know how to write in order to be successful literally anywhere else on college or in life. Um, but you need to be participating actively in your own learning. So, I'm going to give you a trick about how to read actively if you struggle. If you have like scatterbrains and you're all the time like looking around like what's happening, what's happening, and you cannot focus, don't you dare feel silly. That was an email. But take your finger, press it up against, if it's a physical book, great. Put it right here, read along with your finger. If it's on the computer, I'm serious. Yes, you're going to smudge your screen. They make screen wipes. You'll be okay. Press it up underneath the words as you go. Have your textbook read it to you. Like, use the highlight feature. These are accommodations that they built in for a reason, and the reason is to help you. Make sense? So, so definitely like use those tricks. Now, excuse me, the finger trick I actually was taught when I was 12 years old. And I was at 12, I don't know who decided this was a good idea, but at 12, they sat me down and said, you know what? You're kind of smart. We're going to make you take the pre SAT at 12. And the guy that was prepping us for the test, that's where I got the finger trick from. And let me tell you something, it has served me. Anytime I get distracted, anytime I can't think, the finger trick, follow along with your words. It works. If you want the brain science reason for why it works, y'all email me. I'll tell you that way, because otherwise this is already too long. So the last one is how to organize your information. Now, your textbook has a bunch of good ideas for how to organize your information and how to keep what you've read. I'll also tell you that your textbook has a notes feature. Now, the notes are only good if you come back and read them. So don't use the notes if you're not going to use it. I want you to do things that are going to serve you, right? So if you need to make flashcards of terms and then quiz yourself like every so often, perfect. Do that. That's excellent study skills. If you need to, the thing I used to do that helped me, and y'all are not going to like it, I'm so sorry, but I would take, do I have it? I don't have a notebook, just out. But I would take a notebook, like literally a college ruled spiral bound 5 subject notebook. Um, my favorite ones were the 5-star ones, but now I like the Mead ones because they've also switched to like the hard plastic cover. Um, and get your favorite pen, your, even if it's like a pink glittery gel pen or one of those Pilot pens. My favorite ones right now are these Sharpie S gels. Promo, not sponsored. Anyway, but get your favorite pen. Literally, as you go, write the things you don't know down. But Miss Satter, why would I? Because you're trying to learn those things. Why would you need to write down the things you already know? Write down the things you don't know, go back on them and look over them later. Those become your study guides, those become your notes, right? So that's kind of what I did that worked. Some people who are more extra than me, now looking back on it, I wish I'd been able to do this. They color coded those notes that I just told you how to do. They'd have like purple for things that were something they struggled with, or pink for things that they were going to use in an essay. And they had like a key for what they did with their highlighters. And I desperately wish I was one of those people. I can tell you what they did, but I didn't do that because that's a level of organization foreign to me. But anyway, those are some ideas for how to organize your information. Okay. Over here, I didn't change this. I know it has nothing to do with like what I just said, but guys, this is the writing process in a nutshell. Planning, drafting, revising, and editing. And since we're going to be doing this the whole semester, like we're starting with reading, but this is where we're going. I was like, I'm gonna leave it and I'm gonna mention it briefly because this is where we're headed. All right, let's see. I need to talk to you about something in your textbook that might make you mad, and I don't want it to, so I want to address it now. I want to talk about the victim creator mindset because the way your textbook words it definitely feels very, if you have a can do attitude, you can do anything you like. Don't let the negativity bring you down. And they're right to a point, but there's also something called toxic positivity where you can pretend that issues don't exist, and then that creates a buildup that can knock you down too. And I don't want us to do that, but I do want to briefly kind of address the textbook and how it described these things. So they're not wrong that like most of what happens to students in college is a result or the consequence of their choices. They are not wrong about that. And if you don't like how something turned out, so like if you fail a course or if you start failing, heavens to Betsy, if you start failing this course, why is there an REA in the middle? I will fix that. That didn't mean to put, oh, I bet you, I know how that happened. Disregard that. That's a mistake. Anyway, so, but like if you don't like how something turned out, right? Then you've got to make different choices to get a different outcome. Like that part is so true, it hurts. Um, so I'll give you this information. I'm gonna have to fix that right now. It's gonna bug me all the way, all the way. Give me this. This is Canva, by the way. Why are there words in here? That's not what we want. There we go. There we are. So if you need help with like presentations, if you ever have a class, highly recommend Canva. By the way. All right, let's see. So, anyways, so one of the things is 10% of life is what happens to you. These are things you cannot control. These are things that just happen. These are setbacks. These are outside events. These are whatever that you didn't decide. This was decided for you, right? You can't help 10% of life. 90% of it is how you react to it. So, like, I had a lot of students in high school when I was at the high school who had like their schedules were out of control. Um, some of them felt like they had to work a second job. Like high school is their job, right? But they would work a second full time job to like support their family, or maybe they wanted a car and that was the only way to do it. So they would have like essentially two full time jobs. Now they can't help that like that was their life necessarily in some of their situations. But some of them chose to react to I have to get a second job by being like, okay, well then money is more important than school, so let me throw school down the toilet. And then they were mad when they were failing and they were upset and they were like, why am I having all these consequences? Well, baby, because you chose something. You chose something. And yes, it was a terrible choice, but you chose something, right? So 90% is how you react. And I hope that you guys have learned. Maybe you haven't. So if not, I'm so excited to be able to tell you. But listen, here's the secret. Your professors are people too. I know, shocker. And so most of them are willing to work with you. And if you come across ones that aren't willing to work with you, like there are things you can do, like let me know, I'll help you out as much as I can as an adjunct with no power. But I've got some tips for you. I'm not going to put that in a thing like this, but I can help you in that way. So most of us are going to be incredibly empathetic to you. And the college itself, like with this whole look at the student as a whole thing, like this is the best time to go to school because most everybody wants you to be successful and will help you. So I just didn't want you to get upset thinking that like Miss Souter thinks that all this terrible stuff that I didn't choose is my fault. No, that's not what we're doing. It's not what we're doing. I just want you to know that even in the middle of like terrible things, you still have a choice in how you react. Like 90% of life is our reactions. All right, last thing. Own memory, short and long term, how to get stuff to stick. This goes back to those notes you took, right? We talked about note taking skills and flashcards and writing stuff out that we don't know and definitions and stuff. So when you first learn something, it goes into your short-term memory box, and it will only make the jump in long term if your brain thinks it's important. Now, if you have a brain like mine that thinks that nothing is important and everything that's super important is what's happening right now, then your long-term memory is going to get full really quickly and just start throwing stuff out that's like super important. Um, so the way that you get your memory to like really really stick is you have to have repetition tells your brain, hey, this is important, it keeps showing up, let me store this somewhere permanently. So that's why I say flashcards, that's why I say, write out a study guide of the things you don't know that didn't make it in long term. Like that's how you handle that piece. And I think that is about it for week 1. I am so sorry that your textbook was broken, but I'm very thrilled to say that it is happening. It is fixed now. And I'm going to go set up a discussion board post for you to talk about like your history with reading and if you struggle and where you struggled and kind of like your attitudes on like reading and writing, just because I'm curious and also because I feel like You might benefit from seeing other people's experiences and knowing that you're not alone in your struggles. Um, and I might even talk about my experience with my first college English class and how I almost failed it. Yes, that's right. Your two master's degree holding college professor almost failed her freshman 101. And I'll talk about what that was like, and what I learned from it, because mistakes and failure are how we learn. Isn't that cool? So, anyway, this video is probably long enough already. So, let's, oh, we're only 16 minutes. I'll trim that down. We're Gucci. All right. Well, I'll see y'all next week.